Hello and welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, the basketball edition. And you don't just have me today. I have a guest on the show, someone who knows sports, someone who's immersed in sports, and someone who is here today to talk to me and to you by extension about sports. Before I tell you a little bit about our guest, I got to remind you, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're continuing to grow, and that is because of people like you. Now, let me tell you about our guest. His name is Martin Pounds. Martin Pounds was born in the Bronx, New York, where he began a successful journey of becoming a poet and writer at the young age of 14. Now, while music caught his interest, he developed the skill to write. From the heart and soul of Martin Pounds to the pen onto the pad, the writer's poet produces a beautiful poetic vibe that cannot and will never be forgotten. And for an added bonus, Martin's love for sports has taken off in a great way, creating his own brand of commentary through his YouTube channel called LiveWireSports and Entertainment and rebranded to LiveWireSports Media. He also writes columns for his favorite teams through Fansided, and he does his writing about his favorite sports teams like the Indiana Fever, the Washington Commanders, and the Miami Hurricanes, just to name a few. And you know what? Like I said, we get to have him here on the Adrienne Ross Show to talk about the WNBA and specifically Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. So here we go. Martin, welcome to the Adrienne Ross Show. Your first time on the show. I'm honored to have you here.
Well, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to interact with you. Love what you do. I've been following you on YouTube, and now just finally get to connect with you on X. So it's been a pleasure. Love your work. Great information. Very detailed and everything like that. So salute to you and everything that you do.
Well, thank you so much. But I'm here to pick your brain. We're here so that we can pick your brain because
Okay.
we have stepped into the WNBA. Now, if you know anything about me, you know early back in the day, I was into the WNBA, into the Houston Comets. I went away in terms of really being dialed in. You know, a little bit here, a little bit there, but really not dialed in at all until this year. Caitlin Clark brought me back to the league. Let me ask you, do you, first of all, consider yourself a fan of the WNBA?
Well, I remember when the WNBA first launched, and I used to follow women's college basketball. Cheryl Miller was one of my first who I ever recognized. And then Cheryl Swoops, sadly to say, Cheryl Swoops, when she was at Texas Tech and she scored 47 points in that championship game, I latched onto her. I thought she was phenomenal, and I followed her all the way to the W. And when she was on the Houston Comets, I just stuck with that team. And through the whole 4 years, I recognized Lisa Leslie, Lisa Lobo, Teresa Witherspoon, Kim Parat, all of them that was with that whole group. And I loved it. And then I followed them all the way through the 4 years. And then after a while, I think Cynthia Cooper, she kind of like retired after that. Then I kind of like in and out a little bit. You know, I missed the whole Maya Moore spill. And then when Diane Taurasi was at UConn, I kind of like, I gravitate to her, but I don't like UConn. It's just something about her that I gravitated to. And then I ended up following her back to the W and started watching it a little bit more and in and out. And then for some years, I kind of like keep my ear to the streets to it a little bit, but never dive back into it until recently when I discovered Caitlin Clark at Iowa in her junior year. And because I watch a lot of college men's basketball, but then the women, and my brother-in-law is a big South Carolina fan. So that's how I started kind of like really getting back into women's sports. And then this is where I'm at now because of Caitlin Clark. It's not because nobody else no more. It's because of her. And so I remember Tamika Tamika Catchings and Shamika Horsclaw when they was in the W, and that's all spewed too. And when Tamika was playing for the Indiana Fever, and I liked her because she was one. I kind of liked her a little bit more than I did like Shamika Horsclaw, even though they were both at Tennessee at
Right.
that time. So, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, Caitlin Clark brought me back, and just to say what the W is now, it's a whole different league, and it's too politicized for me. Instead of just the women play basketball. We know the men basketball, the NBA is politicized too, but
Mhm.
they play.
Right.
You get enjoyment of watching them play, and that's where I wish the women would do, instead of being so catty about certain things, about who bringing attention to the W. You can't help for who Caitlin Clark is.
Right.
She's a phenomenal basketball player, whether she was black, white, whatever the case might be. She's great what she's do, and for people to say that she's not great, then they really delusional. I'm taking a page of Gino Aramaro, saying delusional. So they,
Exactly. Right. Take that,
so
Gino.
yeah, take that. So yeah, pretty much delusional because watching her and just gravitating to her style of game, because I'm a huge Steph Curry fan. So and I like that kind of style of basketball, but she has the whole package.
Yeah.
That's what makes her so different from any player in the W and any player that's in college, women's college basketball now. She has the whole package. She
Right.
doesn't just shoot, she passes, she rebounds, she steals, she's block shots. Yeah, her defense could improve, but
Hmm.
she makes up for it in all areas.
Right, right. Yeah. Okay. So considering that you were like, okay, I'm going to follow her into the WNBA, which is what I said. Oh my goodness, I'm coming back to the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
It was like so much time had passed. I remember, I'm not a UConn fan. I'm completely the opposite of UConn. So, I didn't
Yeah.
for Diana Taurasi or anything like that. I am a Tennessee Lady Vols fan. I said was because I remember Pat Summitt and those were the
Mm-hmm.
days. But Diana Taurasi, I remember her being 20, right? And then when I come back and they start talking about Diana Taurasi's 40, I'm like, what happened? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
20 years older too, right? It just blew me away. But what do you think about how Caitlin Clark handled her first season in the midst of all the politics, as you said, all the drama? How would you grade her on the way she was able to perform, the way she was able to handle herself in this first season?
If I had to grade Caitlin Clark on her professionalism, is an A. Man, A plus, because through all the scrutiny, through all the cattiness, the Angel Reese situation, the Cheryl Swoop situation, Diana Taurasi in the beginning,
Yeah.
all of this stuff, and what everybody in the media kept saying or trying to target her to get her to say certain things. Every time she steps up to that podium, she's such a professional, and they can learn a lot. I mean, if we go back and watch a clip of um, Kalia Copper when she did her post game, and it was so, I guess I could say ghetto, you know, and
Yeah, that's about
it's yeah, and then you like, okay, why are y'all like so dismissive to the media? Yeah, they could be annoying, but at the same time, you're just asking us to form a question. And when you ask Caitlin these questions, she's so deep in her thought and precise how she's answering. She doesn't give too much, she doesn't give too little.
right.
And people sit here and say, well, she need to do more. No, she's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. She's not
Mhm.
supposed to give you what you want, just enough. So I grade her A, because her professionalism is something that you really don't see as much in women's sports.
Mhm. And sports. You know about you talked about men's basketball. You know
Hmm.
how that works. it's the game of basketball, but there are other dynamics at play.
Yeah.
Do you ever want Caitlin Clark to just go off on some folks? Like, do you ever like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I love her professionalism. I love how she handles herself. Yet she's had to take a whole lot. And she's
Mhm.
always taking the high road
Yes.
when she comes in. She's asked questions. If she's asked about Dejanay Carrington, she's going to take the high road. If she's asked about officiating, whatever, she's going to take the high road. She might put a little bit of something in there.
Mhm.
But do you ever feel like, and maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just wrong, but do you think it would serve her well? Maybe I'll phrase it that way. If she got, I don't know, got a little bit feisty.
I actually, in the beginning, the first half of the season, I wanted her to,
Mm-hmm.
but then I wanted to see what the Fever was going to look like in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second half, you started to see it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You started to see her started like, no, I ain't about to be taking this a little bit more.
Right.
I go back to the last Connecticut game where Alyssa Thomas had checked her and she fell down and she jumped up like she was about to go after her, and Aaliyah Boston scooped her up. And then you saw some other games where she was like getting chippy. The one that she knocked, and I think when in the playoffs, she knocked Marina Raby into the sideline, and Marina
Mhm.
Raby, and then she just walked off and like whatever. So you starting to see a little bit more of it. I don't
Mhm.
want her to go totally off because then they'll try to paint her as something, and
Right.
then try to tarnish her image. And I think she knows when now, like when she goes off at the referees, I love it. I love when she give it to the referee. I don't want her to get kicked out the game,
Right. Yeah. Right. Those
but
technical.
so I think in her second season coming in, she's going to be a little bit more different than I think her first season. She's not going to take a little bit. She had to feel her way through and see what they were about, how they was treating her, and know who is like coming after her and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Even though we were expecting Diane Taurasi and Brittany Griner to go after her when they first met on June 30th, but it
Mhm.
didn't happen that way.
Right.
It was more love than anything, you
Well, that's
know.
because they had already put the dog whistle out.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I love that she went in there, beat them 3 times, swept them, and it's just that I think her coming after the break, it kind of like started to feel like, okay, now we rolling. Okay,
Right.
now I could feel a little bit more comfortable doing my old Iowa ways. And you probably gonna see more of her doing that
Yeah.
in the second season,
Yep.
talking a little bit more. Even with the um Kennedy Carter situation, she had to like refrain. But I think if that had happened in the second half of the season, I think it would have been a whole different.
Story.
Yeah,
Yeah, and some of it was probably just being fed up. And she is feisty, and she can jab as well.
yeah.
But I agree, and I said this in one of the live streams I did. I think that she'll have a certain swagger, a different
Hmm.
swagger, even in the second, even more so. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the future of the WNBA because,
Mm.
and not the WNBA, the Fever in particular,
Okay.
because a lot of fans throughout the whole season, myself included, felt that Christie Sides was not the coach for Caitlin Clark for this team. And many of us thought that she was going to be gone before the season even ended. You know,
Hmm.
thought she was going to be gone, say at Olympic break. That didn't happen. So then we knew it was, it was going to be on. And of course, Lynn Dunn gave the impression she wasn't going to get rid of Christie Sides. I think that Christie Sides had some growth. The main part being getting out of the way more and allowing them to play to their strengths instead of trying to just play that slow half-court game.
Yeah.
Now, got to ask you this. I'm on
Okay.
record. I don't think Christie Sides will be there next season. A lot of people are like, that's wishful thinking. We're stuck with her. Some agree. Let me start with you there
Okay.
before I transition to maybe what's next.
Okay.
You believe, not what you want.
Hmm.
Do you believe that Christie Sides will be coaching next season?
No, I don't. I think she's gone. I think they're waiting. They're being patient. They're being diligent. And I did this in a lot of my videos. talking about this because if you know the sport of basketball, you know when it comes down to management and you bring in a president, then you bring in a GM that they've been around for a lot of years and have a lot of experience. You know for a fact when they come in, and I use this football analogy a lot because I'm a Washington Commanders fan. And I went through this whole situation with Daniel Snyder being the owner and to transition him out. And they hold on to Ron Rivera for that 1 year. But we already knew he was done. With Christie Sides is that, yeah, she got to the playoffs, but that doesn't warrant you to keep your job. We've seen it in the NBA a lot that sometimes coaches get fired midway through the season. Some make it to the first round of the playoffs and get knocked out, and then they get fired after the end of the season. There's the Fever, they looking to go in a whole new different direction. And if you bring in a new president and you bring in a GM, why would you keep somebody in place that cannot maximize any more potential from your young roster than she can as a coach? She doesn't really have any coaching experience. This is like her first head coaching experience. So me to say this and say that is that I don't believe she'll stay because I think it would be an indictment to what the Fever is trying to do for the future, especially if they're trying to bring in free agents. Because free agents they're going to sit there and look. If you Christie Sides and the president and the GM say, "Well, we want you to come play for us," they want to play because of Caitlin, but they looking at the coach and say, "Look, I want to play with Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, but your coach can't coach."
And Martin, here's the thing: they have to see it. They have to all in this league be like,
yeah,
girl. They have to know
exactly. And that's my point to the whole situation is that these free agents, I know that a lot of them wants to play with Caitlin. We've seen it since the All-Star break, how they talk highly of her and want to play with her. But if your coach can't coach, then you're gonna have a bad roster again, and you might not even you probably get 20 wins again because of sheer effect of the starting three that you have that could muster up points, but your bench and everything else is going to suffer. So me personally, I know for a fact they're not going to bring her back. If they bring her back, then that just goes to show that they're not really serious about winning. Yeah.
But there are people, Martin, who say in the comments, I see it, they push back when other people say that Christie Sides needs to go. There are people who really think that she deserves another year at the very least. What do you say? What do you say to those people? Because I'm out of words.
Okay. I see me, I'm very logic thinker, and I just don't jump on stories because they out there. I scan the surface and I look at it from my past experience of being a manager and someone that, worked as seeing somebody like Christie Sides. I say this to people who think that something's wrong with you, because if you think she deserves to be a coach, after we seen what she did the first half of the season, how she handled the roster, how she handled CC, I'm not going to even talk about how she grabbed Caitlin on the sideline early in the season when we all was sitting here said she needed to go from that. And then,
but there was a second half.
Yeah, there's a second half, but the second half was because she brought in a former coach that kind of like helped her because she got help in the second half. They had that long 30-day break. So she got help. She got assistance. If she didn't get help or assistance, I don't think this Fever team would have made the playoff, but it would have been a struggle to make the playoffs. They was able to take off because the players was able to gel a little bit more. They was able to figure it out. And Caitlin, for some reason, somebody must be got in Christie Sides' ear say, you need to allow Caitlin to be Caitlin. Now, we did see some of them old tendencies came back in the second half here and there that cost them some gains that they initially should have had one. And and then when you seen the inexperience of her coaching in the playoffs.
Right.
Now she's been on teams that probably made the playoff, but it's a whole different ball game because you got to strategize. You going up against elite teams like New York that got great coaching.
Yeah.
The Liberty that got great coaching. The Suns that got great coaching.
Yeah.
I even put
Yeah.
You got crazed Becky Hammond out there that, you know, for what is worth, you know, you're dealing with a team like that. So your inexperience shows because these coaches know you inexperienced. They know you're not a great coach, and they already strategize against your best player, and you don't have an answer for that.
You don't have an adjustment.
So what makes you think going into a second season, you're going to solve all of that?
Right.
And you just going to come back doing the same Reddick all over again? Nah, to me, she does not deserve a second year because the fact of the matter is she's too erratic. She doesn't know how to build a roster. Her bench should have been one of the most important bench to help her starting five, and they squandered that. From the Celeste Taylor situation, I don't even know what the Alyssa Smith situation. You got Grace Berger, you got Victoria Saxon there that could have been getting playing time. You could have seen
Wheeler, I mean, not Wheeler. Who am I thinking of? Wallace. You got Wallace. Well, you know, an Olympian. So absolutely. And again, like I said, there was some growth there, I think, but I think the biggest growth was kind of getting out of the way. And when I saw the press conference with the new president, I did not get the opinion. I did not get the idea that means she's staying. A lot of people did. They ran with it. I'm like, no, you guys are missing it. You're missing it. You're missing it. Not she didn't even praise her as a good coach per se. You know, she could build community, she could build culture, she is resilient, etc. But that's a whole different thing from being able to take this team to the next level. Now, speaking of the next level, let's get to something that is really controversial, because if we are to think that another coach is coming in, then we got to say, well, who can that be? People ask that all the time. You hear people talk about Mark Jackson. I hear people even mention Larry Bird. I hear people talk about Cheryl Miller. I hear people talk about a lot of different names out there. And now we know that it looks like Connecticut coach Stephanie White is not going to be returning to Connecticut. That's the word on the street, as they say. We also know that Chicago fired Teresa Weatherspoon. So some people are talking about Stephanie White possibly coming to Indiana. She has roots in Indiana. She also has roots in Illinois. And so I put something out there about Stephanie White, just kind of wanting to throw that out there. And there are people, Martin, who feel like that would be a good fit. But I have to tell you, most of the people who commented are outraged at the idea of Stephanie White. And I can understand why. But I want to hear what you think about it, Stephanie White.
I watched your video the day you put it out because I sat on my video for a minute because I had the information to me, but I wanted to linger a little bit more. And then when you put out your video, I said, okay, well then I could go ahead and put out mine, because I remember watching the Pope and he mentioned you, and I also sat back. I said, okay, all right, so let me go ahead and compile my data and go ahead and give my analysis on the situation.
Now he's talking about the Pope Be Frank. You guys have seen him on the channel. Pope Be Frank. Go check out his channel. Keep going.
And so this is my thing. Stephanie White had the first thing that they say that, well, she allowed certain things to happen with her players, you know, going after Clark. And I have got a piece of information and said that there's something going on with the GM there that's kind of allowing that situation, because if you're a head coach and you want to change certain structure in that team and you're not allowed to, your hands are tied. And then that makes it indicative of you as a coach, because they're looking at you as the coach and saying, oh, well, you're allowing this. But that doesn't take away of the brilliance and the experience that Stephanie White has in the women's sports, period. Look what she has done with the Connecticut Sun. I deem the Connecticut Sun has a underlying toxic environment going on there. And me saying this to say that is that why would she leave there to go to Chicago Sky to another toxic environment when she has the opportunity to go to an environment that's fresh? You get to coach one of the youngest teams. You get to build it in the image that you truly wanted to build. You look at DeWanna Bonner and Alyssa Thomas, who are together, engaged, but you could tell they pretty much run that team. So how do you, if you're a coach, why would you want to stay there? Now, I read something today before I came on with you, is that she has one more year left on her contract. But I caution people to understand this. Because you got one more year on your contract, that does not mean you are obligated to stay. They could buy you out that contract. Because if you say, I do not want to return, they can say, okay, let's negotiate. Well, we pay you this much, you take this much or whatever. And she said, okay, no matter what, let's get it done. She doesn't return. Then she's free to go wherever she wants to. 1 year on your contract doesn't mean you are obligated to stay with that team. There's something going on with the Connecticut Sun that just doesn't sit right for her. Because I think she's been there for over 2 years now, coaching there or longer.
I think it's two. This might have been her third year.
Yeah. So within that time, she has taken them to the playoffs. But if you really look at that Connecticut Sun team, the Dejanay Carrington, DeWanna Bonner, the head of the Snake, Alyssa Thomas, you know what I'm saying? There's something going on because of it's just like an owner catering to a #1 draft pick and just loving them, but that's probably the wrong pick for the team. But he's so indicative to push this on. And like I said, I use football analogy a lot because I've seen it done, and it's bad chemistry. So Stephanie White probably looked at going into that is like, okay, I get to coach some veterans, who've been there before. But now you could tell it's ran its course.
Are you saying that the environment was so toxic that you feel that it's not Stephanie White's doing? Because that's what people are saying. They feel that we saw what Dejanay did. We saw Alyssa Thomas and her aggression, and we saw all this stuff and the way they treated Caitlin, and they're like, we don't want her here. But are you saying that she wasn't condoning that? She just couldn't do anything about it?
Yeah. I mean, she probably, like, your hands can be tied in certain situations where you want to correct that. But if you got a boss over you and say, oh, no, let them do what they want to do. I want them to do what they want to do. Or you can't say this to this player. You can't say this to that player. And like I said, I never seen a team that has two couple on a team that where if you look at the playoff, how Caitlin kept getting into it with DeWanna Bonner, that never happened early in the season. You know what I'm saying? Her and DeWanna Bonner started going at it. You see AT, she always kind of like slithers her way towards the environment of confrontation. Even in the Minnesota playoff game where Marina Ravery and Nafisha Carla can't get into it, you kept seeing all of this stuff started taking place. Like they was trying to play bully ball to beat up on teams that scared them into submitting. You know what I'm saying? Which it didn't work against Minnesota. And I feel like Stephanie White she don't want that kind of environment for herself, because if you look at her coaching career, she's never been that kind of coach. So yeah, I see it's easy to point the finger at her because she's the face of coaching that team. But there's other things behind the scene that we don't know about. And for what it came to me and pointed out about the GM of the team, then you remember Amy Cox, she was part of that organization at one time. So That's why I don't see why Stephanie White will stay there another year, and I don't understand, her leaving one toxic situation, going into another toxic situation with the Chicago Sky. I just don't see that.
Mhm, mhm. Well, we're gonna find out, or not find out, right?
Yeah,
I think that they will not announce Christie Sides having to step aside until they have another coach in place. When they have
hmm
another coach in place, it'll be a situation where we thank you for your service
yeah,
for taking us to the playoffs. We hadn't been there in years. We appreciate that. And now we wish you well. I think it would be unwise. Obviously, that press conference wasn't the time to go, oh yeah, we're gonna get rid of her. Like,
yeah,
so people were like, oh, they didn't say. I'm like, what do you think they're gonna say? They're
yeah,
not gonna say
yeah.
that. They're gonna honor her, which was the right thing to do. Say the good things that are true. You can say without saying anything else. And so I'm thinking that as soon as they have someone and they know who it is and they're confident, we're gonna find out. And then this team will really be a fresh start from the
hmm
president, the GM, the coach. And now as we start to close, now I gotta ask you this. What do you see, or whom do you see in a Fever jersey starting next season, and who not?
Well, I did a video about a week and a half ago about some free agent possibility, and then I did a video and somebody comment on there and told me they want me to do a more in depth another video about free agents. And the first one I did, I went back and looked at the free agents that's listed. I didn't do any free agents that's overseas. I just looked at the ones in the U.S. And I
Okay.
know one YouTuber, he always was talking about DJ Carrington. And I scratched that with an X because I don't
Oh,
see.
no way.
I know no way. And I was like, nah, I don't care how good defensively she is. She's still a liability as a scorer. She only get free scores because she runs the floor and whatever the case might be. So
And she's toxic. I say no
it's
way.
very toxic.
And yeah.
I look at Anika Umake from Seattle. She's a veteran because they was talking about veteran presence.
Mhm.
If Seattle doesn't bring her back, because they do have her, they had Gabby Williams. Don't know what the situation. I would love Gabby Williams because I think her game would translate well with Cece.
I think
But
she's done.
yeah, I don't think she's coming back to the United States. I think she's had it up to here and
Mhm.
everything like this. Now I did Salto Sably. I really like her game. I love because I was watching her play with Enrique over there in Dallas, and Enrique is such a dominant ball. She
Right.
doesn't do the things that she's a great scorer, but she doesn't do what Cece could do.
She
And
doesn't make everyone better.
yeah, and I
Right.
think Sably will be a great fit in that lineup.
Mhm.
Now, I was saying something like somebody like Tina Charles, as a veteran you can bring off the bench, for backup purposes. I even looked at Kia Nurse, who's a free agent. Very great 3-point scorer. She could run the second unit behind Caitlin when Caitlin gets a rest. That could still keep the flow of the game. Unlike, I love Erica Wheeler, but she doesn't she's limited in certain spaces. Kia Nurse could help stretch out the floor a little bit, especially in the 3-point area.
Mhm.
Now, Grady in defensive purposes, that could score a little bit too. Ariel Powers, I like her. There
Mhm.
was comments about her comment on stuff on CC. Somebody said, "Oh, you look good in Fever jersey," and she was like, comment about it. I like her grittiness. I like her feistiness, and she's a dog. And she doesn't take personal shots, but she has great tenacity about her.
Mhm.
Um, Now there's one name from overseas that kept bringing up, but it's called her name Emma McPherson. I think she played on Germany or France, one of them teams.
Mhm.
That she's really great too. So I think they have opportunities to shore up the bench. That's the area I really want. They just need like one more person in the starting lineup that can
Mhm.
mesh with Boston. Once they re-sign Kelsey back and Lexi and Clark, but they really,
You want Lexi to stay because there was talk that she might not be protected with the draft. But Lexi, Caitlin, Aaliyah, right?
Yeah.
And
And Mitchell.
what about and Mitchell, of course? Yeah. What about Timmy?
I think, let me see. You ran down, so it's Caitlin, Mitchell,
Mhm.
um,
Boston
Boston, Timmy, and Lexi. That's the five.
and Timmy as well. Okay.
Yeah. So I will keep that five.
I would
Eh,
love to have Nafisa Collier.
oh my gosh.
And she's
If
a free agent, I believe.
no, I don't think she is.
You know, someone told me that the other day. They said
No, if you look at the free agency,
she's not.
she's not a free agent.
Okay, so somebody strung me along because I started.
No, she's not. But oh, trust me, Cheryl Reeves would not let her leave if she
Oh,
was a
I'm
free
sure.
agent.
I know
Uh,
that's wild.
No, she's not a free agent. They have some players on that team that is, um, and they just to piggyback a little bit what we was talking about Stephanie White.
Mhm.
They have like 4 or 5 free agents over there with the Connecticut Sun.
Mm.
That's another situation that you're looking at like, well, what is Russell going to be like going forward? If, they might sign them back, but whatever the case might be. But I think that the Fever have some idea who they want. But the key names that I brought out is because, like Salsa Sobly, she will,
Yeah,
like I say, she will be a great addition
yeah,
because
yeah.
she could really fill that role that Melissa Smith can't fill.
Mhm.
You
That
know, she doesn't clog the lane. Boston could really work, and you will have Clark, Mitchell, Salto, and Lexi out on the perimeter. That
mhm,
stretches everything out, make everybody play way out, and
mhm,
then you are able to work the inside out game with Boston a little bit more.
mhm.
I would love to see them get another big and move Boston to that small forward spot and let somebody else play the center where you could utilize Boston's skill. Now, Boston did say that she's going to work on herself and she wants to come back next season because she wants to run more with
Yeah,
Caitlin.
she's
So
gonna have to come back in shape, which she did
yeah,
not do this season.
yeah. So I think there's options out there. I'm gonna dig a little bit more to see.
Let me ask you this, because we didn't mention why am I drawing a blank? The other big from Brazil. Why am I drawing a blank? Dantas.
Dantas.
Right. She's from Brazil, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Dantas. What do you think about her?
She has one more year on her contract for what I've known.
Mhm.
So I think Dantas, as she came back heavy because she was injured and all the stuff she was going to. But I think if she could come back in shape a little bit more than she was last year, because she was working through a knee injury, so you can't really see the full potential of her. And I did videos on her like way early in the season, and she could shoot really good. She could
She
play
stretched.
inside, yeah, stretch the floor. But I think if she comes back in shape, she could be more valuable to the bench than she was this season. Because we did see glimpse of her
Mhm,
a little bit more,
mhm,
but she's not as quick enough, nimble enough to move at the pace where especially if you're gonna run CC's offense and the pace of the game that they talk about running this season, you got to
mhm.
be in shape.
You got to be in shape. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I honestly, with everything that went down this season and the DNA of this league, I was like, Cece, get up out of here. But here's the bottom line: she's not. She's gonna be here, and so that's why these kinds of conversations are important. I could go all day
Mm,
about
yeah,
get up out of there, and even some ideas. I've been hearing some things about maybe a different league starting. I listen. If CC goes, I'm out of here. But right now, I just want to kind of keep the conversation
yeah,
where we are, and this is where we are. And if they bring in the right people, man, this team could be exciting. This is to those who say Christie Sides deserves more time. You have to understand, you get a moment of time, and
hmm
we don't have time to go through the growing pains and waste the time and talent of a player like Caitlin Clark. You got to strike while the
hmm
iron is hot.
I agree.
Time is now. So I appreciate you allowing me to pick your brain. Where can people
Oh,
follow your work and what you're doing?
Well, you can follow me on YouTube, LiveWire Sports Media. Also, same handle on X, LiveWire Sports One on X and Instagram. And also, I write sometimes when I have time. I write blogs for myself. LiveWireSportsBlog.com. Sometimes I write for some Fever articles. Sometimes I write for the stuff for the Commanders. So I do a little bit. That's where you can find me at. As always, it's great to interact with you. Like I said, I always see you and Pope. Y'all, y'all have great analogy and stuff like that, and I love it. I follow a lot of other different people also on YouTube, and sometimes when I watch our channel and I piggyback, always give a shout out to y'all, for whatever information that y'all provide that I might miss or whatever, if I'm playing catch up or something like that. But unless that, I really enjoy what you do. And I do have one question before we sign off.
Sure.
Have you heard anything about the lockout for according to the old CBA? Because there was rumors going around that some of the players, Breonna Stewart was talking about it, that they want more money. They might potentially be a lockout or whatever, or players might sign a 1-year agreement for the new CBA to kick in next year or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of information on that. I've heard the rumors as well. I heard the rumors about Breonna Stewart wanting more money, all of that. I don't know. I thought when I heard something yesterday, my mind went to you guys. You're just stepping into a great opportunity. First of all, you treated like crap the person who could help with the revenue. That's
Mm-hmm.
number one. If I'm running the deal, I'm thinking you guys need to sit down and shut up because you keep shooting yourself in the foot. But I think where you are right now, the growth that you can have right now, you need to keep it going.
Yeah.
Just be steadfast and keep it going. Get yourself together because the league is just a wreck in so many ways. Honestly, so just be steady, get it together, get your head out the clouds, get all the political stuff out of the way in terms of your woke agenda,
Mm-hmm.
and watch the doors open.
Yeah.
So, but no, I don't know any details other than the same rumors probably you've heard.
Okay. That's fair.
We'll find out, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting this off season.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to pick your athletic mind. I appreciate that so much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
All right. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show. Once again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you next time, God willing. God bless you abundantly.